There is a strange feeling that surfaces sometimes without warning. You see children laughing freely, careless and loud, and instead of simple nostalgia, you feel distance, not just from them, but from your own past. You try to remember what it felt like to be small and unburdened, but the memories feel thin, serious, or strangely quiet. You remember responsibilities. You remember tension, you remember being aware. But you do not remember feeling fully like a child. And when you say, even privately, I feel like I never had a childhood, it does not sound dramatic. It sounds factual. That feeling is not about lacking toys or birthday parties. It is about lacking psychological space. Childhood is not defined only by age. It is defined by permission to depend, permission to make mistakes without consequence, permission to express emotion without managing the emotional state of others. When you feel like you never had a childhood, it often means you were carrying something too heavy too early. Sometimes it was visible responsibility. You may have cared for siblings, translated for adults, handled tasks beyond your developmental stage. Sometimes it was invisible responsibility. You became the emotional stabilizer, the peacemaker, the listener, the quiet one who did not add stress. You learned to read the room before you spoke. You adjusted your mood to fit the atmosphere. You were praised for being mature, calm, easy. But maturity developed under pressure is not the same as maturity developed through growth. It is adaptation, and adaptation always has a cost. When a child senses that expressing needs will increase tension, they suppress those needs. When they sense that adults are overwhelmed, they become smaller emotionally. They learn quickly that survival is linked to stability, and stability depends on their behavior, so they regulate themselves excessively. They stop asking for help. They stop complaining, they stop being loud. This self-regulation becomes identity. You grow up believing you are simply independent or strong. But underneath that identity is a nervous system that learned vigilance instead of play. Feeling like you never had a childhood often means your nervous system did not experience sustained safety. Safety is what allows spontaneity. Without safety, the body remains alert. Alert children do not relax fully, they anticipate. They observe, they plan. You may remember being old for your age. Adults may have confided in you. They may have relied on your insight. While this can feel validating, it places adult-level processing on a child's mind. The child becomes a container for complexity they cannot fully metabolize. As an adult, this can manifest as chronic responsibility. You may feel uneasy when not productive. Rest may trigger guilt, fun may feel foreign. Because somewhere along the way, play was deprioritized. Responsibility replaced curiosity. Another sign is difficulty identifying your own desires. When childhood is spent responding to external needs, internal preferences remain underdeveloped. You become skilled at adapting but less practiced at initiating. When someone asks what you want, you hesitate. You scan for what would be easiest for others. This pattern does not come from indecisiveness, it comes from conditioning. You learn that alignment with others ensured stability. Emotional suppression is also common. If expressing sadness, anger, or fear once caused discomfort in your environment, you likely minimized those emotions. You may have learned to cry quietly or not at all. You may have become composed during chaos. That composure becomes admired. But admiration does not equal nourishment. The emotions that were suppressed do not disappear, they become stored. As an adult, you may struggle to access them easily. You may feel numb in moments that seem like they should evoke intensity. Numbness is not absence, it is protection that lasted too long. Another dimension of feeling like you never had a childhood is a sense of emotional loneliness. Even if you were surrounded by family, you may not have felt fully seen. Being relied upon is not the same as being supported. Being praised for maturity is not the same as being comforted. You may have internalized the belief that you are the strong one, the reliable one, the one who handles things. That belief can make vulnerability feel unsafe now. If you were strong then, you assume you must remain strong now. Hyperindependence often follows. Asking for help feels uncomfortable. You solve problems alone even when you do not have to. Dependence feels risky because it was not modeled as safe. This creates a paradox. You crave connection, but you struggle to lean. You desire support, but you hesitate to receive it. There may also be grief. A quiet grief that surfaces unexpectedly, perhaps when you see someone being nurtured gently, or when you imagine what it would have been like to be carefree without consequence. That grief is not self-pity, it is recognition of unmet developmental needs. Childhood is meant to be a time of gradual exposure to responsibility, not immediate immersion. When exposure is abrupt, parts of you grow faster than others. The result is imbalance. You may feel competent in crisis, but uncertain in comfort. You may handle chaos smoothly, but feel restless in calm. Your nervous system learned to function in high alert, so low alert feels unfamiliar. Overachievement can also develop from this background. If praise once followed performance, you may equate worth with productivity. Achievement becomes proof of stability. You push yourself not only to succeed, but to secure your place. Underneath ambition may be an old belief that you must earn safety. This belief drives you forward, but exhausts you internally. Perfectionism often accompanies it. Mistakes feel heavier because in childhood, mistakes may have carried consequences beyond embarrassment. You learn to be careful. Now, small errors can trigger disproportionate self-criticism. Another sign is difficulty with playfulness in adulthood. You may struggle to let go socially. Jokes may be analyzed instead of enjoyed. You may feel older than peers, even if you are the same age. That feeling comes from early exposure to adult realities. You skip stages. You moved quickly from innocence to awareness. And awareness changes perception permanently. Feeling like you never had a childhood does not mean you are broken, it means you adapted. The skills you developed were intelligent responses to your environment. They kept you stable, they kept others stable, they worked. But adaptation that once ensured survival can limit expansion later. Healing involves integration, not erasure. You do not need to discard your strength, you need to add softness. You need to allow yourself what was postponed, permission to rest. Permission to express emotion without managing the room. Permission to make mistakes without interpreting them as threats. Reparenting is a term often used to describe this process. It means giving yourself the patience, reassurance, and care that may have been inconsistent before. It means noticing when you are overfunctioning and choosing to step back. It means asking for help even when it feels unnatural. It means experimenting with play, even if it feels awkward initially. Your nervous system can learn safety later in life. Through consistent supportive relationships. Through therapy, through mindful awareness of your patterns. Through boundaries that protect your energy. Gradually, the body begins to relax, the hypervigilance softens. The guilt around rest decreases. The inner child, a metaphor for your early unmet needs, begins to feel acknowledged rather than ignored. Feeling like you never had a childhood is not a complaint about the past. It is information about the present. It explains why you may feel older than you are. Why you struggle to depend, why rest feels undeserved. Why emotional expression feels risky. Once you understand this, you can begin to rewrite it. You cannot change what happened, but you can change how long you carry it. You were responsible because you had to be. You were mature because the environment required it. Now, you are allowed to grow differently, not backwards, not regressing, but expanding into the parts that were paused. You are allowed to be supported, allowed to be imperfect, allowed to be playful. The absence of childhood does not define your future. It explains your patterns, and patterns, once understood, can be reshaped.